right, welcome to the inaugural episode of Two Dads, One Green with Pat and Joe. Yay!
Hey everyone.
Golf clap. This is going to be hopefully a bi-weekly podcast. We're starting it to stay connected with each other. Recently, Joe moved to the other side of the country, so just a way for us to keep in touch about golf, life, fatherhood, and a way to document the process of our kids growing up and fatherhood as well. So that's what we're planning to do, and we'll talk more about ideas for future shows at a later time.
Yeah, this is a podcast about two friends having a conversation about golf, perhaps parenthood, life. This is, I think, a couple months in the making, so finally here. First episode, it's Masters Week. So
yeah,
it's
Wednesday, 4/9.
Yeah, so, kicking off the golf season, kicking off this podcast as well. So, yeah, hopefully we'll get some exciting topics to talk about. And this kind of reminds me of a Chinese saying, how men, as they age, as they approach middle age, all they're left with is their mouth. And just to give that a little context, I think what is meant here is that I think as men age, they lose maybe some of their physical capabilities, compared to their youth, but their overconfidence remains. So, all they do is basically talk, and here we are. Yeah, starting a podcast, with perhaps less time dedicated to actual golf. We're transitioning to talking about golf, so it matches this whole saying.
Yeah, still got the mouth to talk.
Yep.
So,
all right. So
yeah, maybe we can take turns sort of introducing ourselves. Joe, you want to go first?
Sure. So my name is Joe. As Patrick mentioned, recently moved to the other side of the country. Originally, I was living in Illinois, in the Chicago area. That's where I met Pat through work, and now I'm based in Connecticut. I grew up in Asia, in Taiwan specifically, and that's where I started to golf, where I learned about golf. Didn't really play much in school. Came to the States after high school for college. Didn't really play much then either. But after I starting to work, I met some coworkers who, very passionate about golf, and that's when I picked it up again, and here we are. I would describe myself, I think, as an pretty avid golfer. I would, try to find time to play every weekend, when I can. But that's, of course, before the transition to becoming a dad, which happened last August. So when my daughter Emma was born, now she's 8 months old. So not much golf since that happened, but starting my parental leave. So hopefully, to pick up some golf activities in the next few months.
Nice. How would you describe your golf game?
Golf game, yeah, good question. I would say I'm decent, right? Maybe above average with the driver. Distance wise too. Considering my height and physique. I think I'll surprise some people. Iron game is okay. Manageable. I think short game. Maybe around the greens, putting. That's where it becomes a little inconsistent. So something I want to work on. Kind of difficult now that it's getting less and less time spent on golf. So that fine motor skills, that the touch isn't quite there all the time. But again, starting that parental leave, so hoping to dedicate some time to that.
Just got to build that giant putting green in your house somewhere. Get to work.
Yeah, so that'll be maybe one of my projects this summer, perhaps. Yeah, so that's me.
Yeah.
Patrick, you want to
Good.
do an intro?
Yeah. My name's Patrick or Pat, whatever. I am the father of two kids. I've got a almost 3-year-old and a 1-year-old next month. So pretty busy times around the house. Definitely a bit tougher to find the time to golf.
Kids starting to golf yet?
Yeah, the older one does swing the club around a little bit in the backyard, so that's exciting to see. Seems to already have a better swing than me, so that's maybe promising for our new house in Florida someday. But we'll see what
That's the
happens
dream.
there. Yeah. And I guess in terms of like what I do, like you said, we met at a big pharma company in the Chicagoland area as engineers, and I sort of transitioned into a more commercial role a few years ago. So don't have as much connection to the engineering world anymore, but still feel a little bit connected to it. And I think engineering, you can tend to think quite a bit too much on problems, and I feel like that is very relatable to golf, especially in swing thoughts and what's going wrong or what's going right on the green or in the rough. So I think it's a good mindset to try to limit that while you're on the golf course and try to enjoy being there, which is kind of what I like about golf, especially these days as there's less time to do it. Just being outside in nature and hitting a couple good shots here and there is definitely feels a lot better than it used to when frustration would take over.
So how would you describe your golf game then?
Yeah, unlike you, similar physique, but don't hit it as far off the driver. Manageable, but I'd say I rely probably on my short game a bit. I end up in quite a few sticky situations outside of the fairway, so often have to get creative. So looking to improve that this summer, though.
I feel like in theory we should be a good like scrambling team.
Yeah,
I don't know if from our experiences playing together in golf leagues if that was necessarily the case.
yeah. I mean, I feel like it should be. I mean, we were often having to do low score, right? So we didn't get to switch off or do, you know, scramble per se. I think we maybe played one scramble with a couple other people. What was that course called? Steeplechase?
Yeah, I think
Maybe?
so. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I thought we did okay there. But yeah, in theory, I feel like our games are kind of coalesce with each other pretty well if we were to scramble. But anyways,
What are some of your kind of go-to swing thoughts on the course?
yeah, I try to limit them as much as possible. I think maybe one is just shorter backswing, which I know we've talked about before. We both can get a little long in the backswing, especially driver, so that's certainly one. But otherwise, I try to just sort of walk up and hit it as much as I can, kind of like a Ludwig Oberg sort of a vibe, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
I think I got three. One being shorten that backswing. Backswing can get a little long and throw off the timing a little bit. Second one, just be a little patient with the hands. Sometimes it gets too quick. Just remind myself to initiate with the body first, maybe with the legs and the body. And then third, just to do that full rotation, not to, hit the ball with the hands, with the arms flaying around. Use that body, rotate. Yeah, so that's some of my swing thoughts. Yeah, on the course. So, Patrick, since this is a golf podcast, let's talk about also, how'd you start playing golf? Maybe some of your early golf memories
Yeah,
growing up.
yeah. I mean, I'll start out by saying I have a pretty bad memory, but I mean, I feel like probably around 7, 8. I would go to the driving range every once in a while with my dad. Um, Sort of taught me how to swing. Um, Whether or not it's correct is another question, but that was certainly, I think, how I started. That was a joke, Dad, by the way. And I think as I got older, we sort of started just playing more, family vacations and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I got started. And then I ended up playing in high school a little bit, not because I was very good, but because there were not that many golfers at my school, so it was a little easier to make the team. So I got to play more
Was
free
golf
golf then.
was golf your main sport?
No, actually, I was more into swimming and water polo, so those took up probably 10 months of the year.
Very
Uh,
different. I guess except
yeah,
when you're when we're hitting balls into the water, I guess.
yeah, that's why I'm always going in there to get them. But yeah, so what about you?
Yeah, so yeah, again, similar. Memory is a little hazy now that I'm older. I think this feels very distant, but I think I started off actually playing more virtual golf, like golf on the computer. So this is probably in the like early 90s. I remember and I'm in like elementary school or middle school. My dad has in his office like a black and white Macintosh Classic, and on there he has
Nice.
two games, like I think Tetris and for some reason PGA Tour Golf. Tetris is pretty repetitive, so I naturally kind of got curious to see what this golf thing is, because at that time I have no idea what it is, but I feel like I got pretty good at it. And then the game had like players at the time like Tommy Armour, Fuzzy Zoeller, like Craig
Oh,
Stadler,
the
Fred
walrus.
Couples, like at that time I know nothing about golf. I've never watched any golf, but I knew those players before I started watching any golf. So that was some good experiences there. And then I think the game offered um, PJ Sawgrass and PJ West, which I got to play in person years later.
You played Sawgrass too?
Not Sawgrass, but PJ West. So that was
Oh,
pretty
okay.
interesting. Pretty cool too. But again, it's many years removed from when I first started playing that video game in the 90s. So um, don't remember much of it from memory. But yeah, in terms of real golf, started playing maybe around a little bit older, a few years older. My dad kind of got me into golf. He started playing because at the time he was, an aspiring businessman in Asia. Um, so growing up in Asia, I think that seems to be the activity of choice for most successful businessmen. So he thought maybe starting to play golf will make him a successful businessman as well. Um, so yeah, he decided, why not bring the kids as well? So he got me some lessons at the local driving range, but really hated practice growing up. I never had that patience to kind of grind on the range. Playing on the course seemed more fun, but in Asia, this is in Taiwan where I grew up. Rounds on an actual course is like at least $100 US dollars. So not the
Yeah.
cheapest, and you're bringing your kid who can't really play on the course and paying that kind of money is just not really worth it. So um, plus none of my friends in school really played golf, at the time, I think, in
Okay.
Taiwan. Even though this sort of coincided with Tiger's ascent,
Hmm.
and there was that Tiger craze in Asia as well, but in school, I think the most popular thing is still basketball. It's the '90s, late '90s.
Yeah.
Chicago Bulls, your Lakers, Knicks.
Yeah.
So that's still the main thing. So I never really played that much golf. Didn't play golf in school. I don't think my high school even had a golf team. And as
Okay.
I mentioned later, really didn't pick it back up um, until I graduated and started working, where I met people who love golf, and yeah, that's where I
Nice.
became that avid golfer. Yeah. All right. So I think that's a good introduction for both of us. I think let's move into what might become a constant segment in our episodes, a segment called Would You Rather. So this is where we'll take turns asking each other a couple of Would You Rather situational questions, and then we'll offer our answer and provide a reason. Um, so I guess I'll start. So Patrick, first question is, would you rather play, famous course A or B? So gotta pick between Pebble Beach or St. Andrews, and why?
Uh, okay, so I haven't played either of them to start. Pebble seems like the views are pretty incredible, and obviously they've got tournaments there all the time. But then you've got the history of St. Andrews, kind of on that end. But I think probably what would win out for me is the views at Pebble, and just being out in that part of the world. It just looks gorgeous on TV. What about you?
Yeah, I would agree. Pebble Beach looks pretty awesome, but the history of St. Andrews, I think, that's where the appeal is. And when I'm kind of looking back, I mentioned earlier I started my golf path, path in golf through video games. I think along the way I also played, the Open on the computer, which had St. Andrews, and also Royal Troon. Again, never played either in person.
Mm-hmm.
But as I kind of mentioned earlier, having played like PJ West on the computer, and then many years later, having the opportunity to play there in person was pretty nice and pretty awesome. So yeah, I would go St. Andrews.
Oh wow. Okay, that's fair. All right. Next question is going to be golf trip A or golf trip B, and we have selected Bandon Dunes or Pinehurst. The complex of all the courses, obviously.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about Bandon Dunes, and that sort of is on my bucket list. But here I'm gonna go with Pinehurst. Um, One, for practical reasons, it's just closer. It's on the East Coast, and also there's been PGA Championships played there. There's some history there a little bit. So being able to kind of just walk where the pros have played, pros have won. So that would be pretty interesting. And I think most recently, Rory's lost there
And take the
against.
same steps, miss the same short putts.
Yeah. So I wanna see if I can do any better. How about
Yeah.
you, Patrick?
Well, that's good. Yeah, I think I would probably go Bandon. We had a friend of ours who we golfed with a while back said he went there for a trip, actually to both places, but he said Bandon was particularly cool and just he described it as a lot of fun golf and different course layouts. You know, they've got many different architects that have designed the different courses there, so I think you get a bit of uniqueness there. And I've heard Oregon is beautiful, so again, kind of picking up on my vibe of liking the views and scenery while golfing. That seems like it would be the place. Though, no disrespect to Pinehurst, but I also am not a fan of Turtle Black Donald Ross greens, so that would be another reason to not do that first trip there.
Yeah, I was thinking if I'm struggling with my short game or putting, I can at least blame that. So, just something to blame.
That's true. Yeah, there you go.
All right, next question. So Patrick, would you rather drive 300 plus yards but carry a 10 handicap, or drive maybe 250 on average but be a scratch golfer?
Yeah, I think probably the second one, because that's about what I am. No, I'm just kidding. No, I am. That's my driving range, right? So, I mean, if you could cut strokes off and become a scratch, I think that would be ideal. The long drive is nice, but at the end of the day, if you can't score, it's doesn't really do much for you. So I think I'd go the 250 and scratch. What about you?
You don't want to be like Bryson, I think.
No, but I would say he's more like a 300 and plus 6 or 7. So he's already got both of them combined down.
Okay. And I would say, I think, to be honest, the last few rounds I've played with you've exceeded 250.
Yeah, I mean, I can't hit it farther than that.
Yeah.
I don't know what the average is, though.
Okay. I think for me, yeah, 250 scratch. I think that's also what I prefer. I think I can drive 250. So again, that's achievable. But I think reaching that scratch handicap kind of tier, that I feel like it's something special. So
you'd be okay dropping 50 yards off your standard drive.
I don't know if it's that much, but yeah, I mean, the rest of the golf game, if I can pick up and then help me get to that scratch, I would make that trade off.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. For this first episode, we also got a couple of additional questions. Maybe not in the would you rather kind of format, but we picked out two to kind of talk about. The first one being, so Patrick, if you could play a round of golf with any person in the world, living or dead, who would that be?
Yeah, so I actually did both because I couldn't decide which one I would rather. So living, probably Rory McIlroy. I'm a pretty big fan of his. He seems like a pretty good guy and could be interesting to talk to.
Anything you want to learn from him?
Yeah, certainly how to hit the ball 350 yards consistently. That would certainly be at the top of the list. But also just hear about his life and stuff like that, I think would be even more interesting than the golf aspect. And then for dead or deceased, I actually think I would try to play with my grandpas. They both passed away when I was relatively young. I think one of them when I was like 3 or 4, and then the other one when I was 10. So I didn't really get to talk to them much about life and that sort of thing. So I think it would be fun to kind of go back and hear more of their story that I didn't really get a chance to chat with them about.
Any specific questions you would ask them? Why are my parents this way?
Yeah, why did my parents raise me this way? No, I just wanting to hear about their life, back in a time much before us. They both were veterans, so be interested to hear those stories too. Not that they would necessarily want to tell them, but if they were willing to share. But yeah, it would just be interesting conversation, I think. Less about the golf. And your answer?
So for me, I only have one. So I picked Live Golf Special, Anthony Kim. I just thought, there was a time we, kind of rose to stardom in the PGA Tour. Was going to be a promising golfer, and also both of us being Asian, so there's that connection. And then he sort of disappeared, right? And there was a big mystery of where he went. There were rumors that, because of his injury, he was collecting insurance checks in return for just not doing any golf activities, but it's all rumor. Yeah, I don't know if that's been confirmed, but now he's resurfaced in recent years in Live Golf, trying to get back to playing good golf, and also recently became a dad, a father of a daughter, so very similar here. So I want to kind of pick his brain on his journey. Certainly seems like he's been through a lot in his life, and perhaps he could share some words of wisdom there. So and maybe on the side as well, some golf tips.
Yeah, I'm sure he's got them.
Yep. Okay, and then second question, last question. Favorite golf item or golf club in the bag?
Yeah, so I went with golf club, and I, again, couldn't really decide between two. Probably a wedge and a hybrid. Like I mentioned, I often find myself off of the fairway, so in different situations, the need for versatile clubs comes into play, and I feel like those clubs can be fairly versatile depending on where you're at, so they always end up getting used quite a bit on a round, so probably the most important for me.
So specifically, which hybrid and which wedge?
Yeah, well, I only have one hybrid, so I think it's now I can't even remember if it's a 3 or a 4. I think it's a 3.
Okay.
It's actually a TaylorMade slider hybrid, which I know the driver wasn't super popular, or sorry, it was popular, but I feel like there was some negative publicity about it. But
I still have one. For me. If you center it, it's awesome. If you don't, it's terrible.
Okay. So there you go. Yeah, I knew there was something about it like that. And then wedge-wise, probably a 60. I mean, there's just a lot of versatility that you can do with that too. And I've got probably a low to medium bounce, so I think that also helps if by chance I'm not in the thick stuff around the green.
Nice. Okay. And then from my side, just in case the wife's listening, so favorite golf item is my rangefinder, which was a gift from my wife. Thank you. Use it all the time. It works. It's great. And then I guess alternatively, if I had to pick another, it would be the ball marker we got from our Whistling Straits trip. That was pretty special.
Oh, yeah.
Great views. Again, I don't, it's not something I would, imagine to be able to see like in Wisconsin. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah,
being in the middle of the country, great course. Really had fun on that trip. So
Yeah,
not something
those,
I ever use in the course actually, but I'll keep it in the bag. Yeah, it's nice. I like it.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, all right. So Patrick, what we got next?
Yeah, so next we're gonna talk a little bit about the Masters, being that it's Masters week. Kind of, as Joe mentioned, the unofficial beginning of golf, even though there's some signature events already played. But I feel like the springtime and Masters is kind of the beginning of the season, and when folks like me in Chicago can actually maybe start playing some golf outside, so it feels a little more close to that. So I guess maybe we can start out by talking about maybe favorite Masters from years past, or Masters moments that you can think of that stick out in your mind at all.
Yeah, it's a good topic. So I want to preface all this by saying, when I was growing up in Taiwan, didn't really watch that much golf. So first of all, Asian parents, so the focus was on the academics first. Didn't really play that much golf either. And also, because of the time difference, it's really difficult to watch any broadcasts live as they're happening anyway. So
Yeah,
that never
right.
happened. And then any broadcast that we actually got was pretty. The commentary was pretty poorly dubbed. So just not doesn't have that production value in the atmosphere. So I never kind of grew up watching and experiencing any of those kind of special past moments in the Masters.
Were they just trying to dub what the announcers were saying, or were they doing their own commentary?
Yeah, actually, just to correct that. So yeah, they were trying to do their own commentary, which was
Oh,
poor,
okay, gotcha.
pretty poor.
Poor commentary.
Yeah. Most of the time they'll just be doing reactions. Like someone hits a good shot and they'll say, "Oh, great shots!" It's not like nothing. Not real commentary, I would say.
Okay,
So,
gotcha.
so anyway, yeah. After I became more serious about golf, maybe later in life, after I started work, that's when I, watched more golf on TV and probably coincided with finishing school and having more time for this. So most memorable Masters from years past, so pretty recent, probably Tiger Woods' win from 2019. That's something I watched the full round, and I watched replays of it a couple times too. 'Cause I remember many years back, when Tiger was in his peak form, it was basically him versus everyone else, right? It's just like who can beat Tiger at the time. But in recent years, he's the injuries have accumulated. He's getting older, so in this more recent win, he felt sort of more like the underdog. Have some weaknesses, not like the superhuman from years past. So it was great to root for, and he actually overcame and won, and that was pretty nice. And also, celebration of his win with his kids and mom after the round. That's pretty special. Something like now that I'm a parent, also something I can relate. So yeah, that one was pretty special. And then I got a couple more just maybe memorable moments from years past in the Masters. Like I remember very well 2005 Tiger's chip in on the 16th. I was using the Nike ball at the time, seeing the ball roll in. That one was great. 2013 Adam Scott win the Masters. So I mean, yeah, it was memorable for me just because I mean Adam Scott as a player, he's got a great swing. He's tall, good looking. Maybe some qualities that I don't possess. Um,
Okay.
great at golf, but there's one thing in common, which is for the longest time he's played these like tireless blades. I think they're like the 680s, which was something I played with growing up, so I got that
Oh,
connection here. So yeah, it was good to see him win and get the green jacket. Um, and a couple of other memorable Masters. I think 2011, Rory's kind of collapse, and then 2016, Jordan Spieth's kind of collapse. It's just
that was a
again,
rough 12th hole.
yeah, it was tough. He put a couple in the water. But again, makes the game relatable. Oftentimes we just celebrate the winners, but um, golf is tough. So even the pros mess up. So just something humbling and again relatable, the game. So yeah, that's me. So Patrick, how about you?
Yeah, I think growing up, I was a pretty big Phil fan. I'm lefty, so he was kind of the big lefty to root for. So when he started his string of Masters wins, that was pretty exciting, especially with the first one. And then that shot from the pine straw. Can't remember if it was the second or the third one, but that was pretty cool.
Is that when he did the little like you know the little jump that became his?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
first one, the putt, I think,
Okay.
was that one. Yeah,
Okay.
and then I think the Heinstraw was maybe just like a bunch of this, but I'd have to go back and watch it. But yeah, and then another one I can think of was Bubba Watson winning and hitting that shot from the trees that had the craziest amount of curve to it. That was pretty cool, and then to just see the emotion when he won, it just sort of gives you goosebumps sometimes when you know they've been out there forever working at their craft, and when they finally achieve something great, it's cool to see that emotion. So yeah, those ones stick out to me.
Very nice. Okay, so we got favorite masters from years past. Let's talk about this year's masters. So, just thinking about the field, who are some players you're rooting for?
Yeah, I mean, as mentioned, I like Rory quite a bit. So I think it'd be great to see him finally get over the hump with the green jacket and break back into major wins. It's been quite a while. So that would be, I'm sure, very exciting for him, especially after some very near misses as recent as last year at the U.S. Open. So that's probably my number one, who I'm rooting for this weekend.
Okay. Yeah, I'm also rooting for Rory. Be great for him to complete the Grand Slam. Right, this is the final piece. And I hope just looking at his form recently, it seems like he's doing pretty well. So hopefully he can get over the hump, maybe an emotional hump,
Yeah,
and get the win. And I just feel like compared to other players, Rory is like his game is more like like if you see Scotty Scheffler, he's so consistent all the time.
yeah,
Maybe except for putting sometimes, but Rory is kind of a little more up and down, and that I think that creates a little more excitement in the game, and I like
yeah.
that. So I'm a big Rory fan. So hope he wins as well.
Yeah.
So Patrick, what are your thoughts on Tiger missing the Masters this year?
Yeah, it's unfortunate as it usually is when he misses a tournament. The injuries unfortunately keep piling up. I think, he would love to be there. I think he always looks forward to that first major of the year, and those are the 4 tournaments that he always strives to play in as much as he can. So that certainly sucks for him. I know, though, this might not be a super popular opinion, but I do feel that he gets some extensive airtime even when he's not doing quite well, and obviously what he's done for the game has transcended anyone else in golf, so I get why, but I think sometimes that can be a bit excessive, so
the people want to see him.
I know. I feel like it would be cool to see in person. Like, I've seen him swing in person, which is amazing. But,
okay.
repeatedly seeing him make bogeys and double bogeys, it sort of not tarnishes, but sort of reduces the image you have built up of him from years past of just dominating the game.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, this is kind of like, you're getting to the phase where it's like watching Jordan like in the Wizards. It's like later part of his career.
And he looks like sometimes he just looks miserable, like he's just like achy, and it looks painful, like for him to even just walk 18. So it's tough to see him like that.
Yeah, I share some of those same feelings. Kind of unfortunate to see him miss. Not sure how much longer we'll see him play. Every time he gets out there, I do want to see him, compete. Perhaps find some of his old form. So that would be good. But unfortunate to not see him out there. I feel like the Masters isn't the same without him. So hoping for speedy recovery. If anyone could, make it back from yet another injury, it's Tiger. So hope to see him. I don't know if we'll see him again this year, but maybe hopefully the next Masters.
Yeah, certainly.
Yep.
So I guess the next thing would be, for all the majors, we're gonna sort of have a mock betting little game between the two of us. So we'll each get $5 bets to make on any sort of bet related to the Masters that we want. Top 20s, 10s, parlays, whatever. And then we'll tally up the wins after each tournament, and whoever wins the most fake money, or perhaps it will turn into real money when I actually place the bets on DraftKings. The person who wins will get a round paid for by the other at a course of their choosing. Nice. So hopefully that could be in person together somewhere, but we'll have to figure that out.
All right, that's St. Andrew's round. I'm making my booking plans right now.
Yeah, maybe after this podcast gets a few sponsors, but we'll see. So I guess I can start off with my 5 picks. So starting off first is going to be Robert McIntyre to finish in the top 20, the Scotsman. Pretty good year so far this year, 4 top 15s. He's 21st in strokes gained total, 8th off the tee, 21st in approaching the green, and then also 6th in greens and regulation, all things that are important at Augusta. So he's at a plus 130. And then the next one would be JJ Spawn to finish in the top 20. He obviously had that crushing defeat at the Players to Rory in the playoff a few weeks ago, but he's also had 2 other top 3s this year, so he's playing some pretty good golf and maybe got some of the big tournament jitters out of the way for himself. So he's pretty good, 18th strokes gained total and 2nd in strokes gained approach,
Wow.
which, as I mentioned, is pretty important at Augusta. Don't want to be not on the green. So that's at plus 230. The third one would be Shane Lowry to finish in the top 10. Another guy who's having a pretty solid year. Three top 10s, fifth in strokes gained total, sixth in approach to the green. So I feel like he's got a pretty good shot to do pretty well. So that's at plus 250. The fourth one would be Sepp Straka to finish top 5, actually. So he's, I feel like, having sort of an under-the-radar, very good year. 7 top 15s, 1 win. He's 7th in strokes gained, 5th in approaching the green, 9th in driving accuracy, which is also important at Augusta, and 2nd in greens and regulation. So he's primed for another pretty good tournament. So and that's at plus 1,000. So that's my big ticket winner, hopefully. And then the last one, we have to pick one at least to pick the winner. That's part of the rules as well. So I am going to go with Rory to finally get over the hump. He's only played 5 PGA events this year. He's won 2 of them, including the Players. 3 top 10s total. First in strokes gained, first off the tee, 10th in putting, which usually is sort of his weakness, I would say, to some extent. So obviously putting pretty well, and then 19th approaching the green, which is pretty solid as well. And that's at plus 650 per DraftKings as of a day or two ago. So all in all, if all of those hit, I would be slated to win $113 net by betting 25. So what do you got on your bet slip?
All right. Start off, just to piggyback off of that, I have end of round 1 leader, Rory McIlroy, at plus 1,600. So I made some of these picks, I think, more on a qualitative approach. Didn't really keep track of much stats, but just kind of thinking back when when Tiger dominated the Masters, what were the important points. I think his driving was it's okay, but his iron game was really good, and then the approach around the greens and putting were pretty solid. So I feel like those were perhaps important things to have. For Rory, like you said, having a pretty good early season, so in good form. He's rested. He didn't play last week, but he, put some work in. So got some extra reps at Augusta, so rested and ready. Count on him for potentially a hot start. So bet on him as round 1 leader. And then I was reviewing some of my picks. I feel like I'm taking some shots on some Live Tour players, but a top 20 finish for, our friend Phil Mickelson, plus 320. Haven't really watched much Live Golf, but I've heard rumblings of recent resurgence in his golf game. So I think he finished runner-up not too long ago. So top 20 finish, not out of the question for Phil. He's played here a couple times. Fair. Right, more than a couple times actually. He knows the course. Knows what it takes to win. Okay, and then another top 20 finish pick, another Live player, Patrick Reed at plus 210. I have not.
Has he been playing good, or I haven't really watched Live much.
Not watched too much of him or Live Golf these days, but just looking back, solid Masters, record. He won in 2018. Top 12 in 4 of his last 6 appearances. So pretty solid guy. I feel like he maybe a little bit under the radar.
Seemingly plays well at the course. So
I'll take a shot on him. And then I'm doing a top 10 finish parlay. So this is Colin Morikawa and Sepp Straka at plus
Nice.
1200. Um, so I kind of like this one. When I kind of went through the list, this one, got my attention. Two,
Yeah.
I think really, really good iron players.
Yeah.
I mean, Colin's putting sometimes is not, I wouldn't call it like great, but
Yeah.
iron games are good. So I like the both of them to maybe carry into a top 10 finish. And then finally, winner pick again, going back to the Live Golf well. Cam Smith at plus 6,000.
Wow.
So gonna count on this as my lottery
that's
ticket.
That's a stretch.
Yeah. Haven't watched him much, but based on my recollection, great around the greens. Super putter. And then the rest of his game is, I feel like, pretty solid.
Yeah.
So I think he's got a shot. Plus 6,000. I'll take a shot. Maybe hit the jackpot there.
Yeah. Well, I think certainly if all your bets hit, you're blowing me out of the water. So hopefully they don't all hit.
Yep.
But yeah, we'll see how that shakes out and discuss it at our next episode with a little Masters roundup. So maybe the last section for the day is probably going to be golf resolutions for the year. So we tried to come up with one easy, one medium, and one difficult resolution for each other. So Joe, you want to go first with yours?
Sure. I think also thinking, right, we're going to keep track and circle back at the end of the golf season to see if we've achieved anything, any of the goals we laid out. And I think it's also maybe a good thing to bring up to the wife, right? Like, if you get any questions about why you're spending more time in golf, we got these goals to work on.
Yeah,
right?
my wife will definitely care about that.
All right, so one easy, one medium, one difficult. All right, so easy one, just building a golf practice area at home. So I want to reduce my reliance on my nearby driving range. It gets really crowded during the golf season.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be able to practice at home, like when I want, right, where I want. So having that would be good. Medium goal, I mentioned earlier, not exactly maybe great at the short game, so I do want to improve my putting. So I want to play at least a round without any 3 putts. So I'm gonna be very kind of mindful of this when I'm playing this year. Long putts, try to lag, right, and put myself in a good position so I can clean up, not get me into a situation where I have to 3 putts. So that's something I want to achieve.
You could always just pick up the ball after the second putt if it doesn't
go
in.
Just a gimme when on the green. I think that works. But no, I'm gonna try no gimmies, right? Everything goes in the hole. When I'm keeping track of this. And then lastly, the one difficult goal, I want to get my handicap to under 5. So let's see if it happens.
Wow.
My handicap last time I checked, and this was right during the golf season last year, so a couple months removed from that. So it was at around a 6. So definitely more challenging these days to find time to practice, find time to play. With the reduced reps and then also trying to lower the handicap, it might be challenging, but something I want to work towards. How about you, Patrick?
Yeah, that's great. I think my easy one, which hopefully is easy, is to play 10 rounds this summer.
Okay.
I think with 2 kids now, it's going to be a bit more challenging, and I don't want to leave my wife hanging every weekend for 6-7 hours to wrangle those two together. So
So
that'll
10
probably be.
rounds, given the Chicago golf length of the golf season, is like how many rounds per month you gotta do?
Yeah, I mean, probably like 2.5
Oh,
ish,
okay.
I would say. I mean, could probably go into the fall a bit
That's
more
true.
than years past with
Yeah.
global warming and all, but yeah, so we'll see. We'll shoot for that, and pun intended, and see how that goes.
Okay.
Um, for my medium, I would like to try to increase my drive by 5 to 10 yards. It's not detrimental to my game where it's at right now, but I think if we've learned anything in the past few years with Bryson and Rory really pounding the ball down the fairway, it's that distance does matter to some extent. So um, anything to do to improve that, whether it's flexibility or strength, will hopefully help with that goal. And then the hard one, I think, similar to you, would be to drop about 2 strokes in the handicap. I would guess I don't track it as closely, especially since a lot of times I'm only playing 9 holes. So I use one of those apps. I can't remember if it's 18 birdies maybe or
Okay. Yeah.
something something like that. They would put me at like a 10 to 12. So if I could drop to like an 8 or a 10, get to single digits, that would be pretty cool.
Mm.
Definitely better than I've ever been. So that would be neat for me. So yeah, that's where I'm at with my goals. And hopefully we can both get there and we can hold each other accountable to achieve those goals. Check in throughout the summer to see how it's going.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe you'll achieve your 10 rounds early.
Yeah, and then turn it into 20 rounds.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think that's all the material we have for today. Thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next time on Two Dads, One Green. See you in the next episode.